Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. On this 30th day of August, we're pushing right up on football time, folks. September's always the month. Tomorrow, Florida State, University of Florida and Utah will be playing. That will be an excellent game. I think Utah will probably win that game. Pretty good game there. We got Labor Day weekend coming up, and I cannot wait for that as well. A lot of great games here. So I'm going to talk about my Heisman picks in this program. I'm going to give you my Heisman pick. A lot of you are not expecting this. I'm going to talk the SEC. Tomorrow, I'll give you my Final Four college football playoffs in the program. Tomorrow, also, 8 days to the NFL. But today I was going to talk about this Arizona story. University of Arizona, the Cardinals here doing college pros. Interesting little tidbit I heard on the Pat McAfee show with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi on how Arizona is trying to circumvent the system with the Kyler Murray contract and a blatant tanking job that they're doing right now. I got a few comments about Hard Knocks and more. Let's go ahead and take our first and only break, and I'll be back here in 49 seconds. We'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to Sports, that is Sports with an S, another S, Scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Alrighty, now I'm back here live. Okay, so Michael Lombardi, former NFL executive, was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He was talking about the potential and reason for it of Kyler Murray being out the whole season. That ownership and management are going to pull Arizona's Kyler Murray out for the season. It's a long soundbite. I'll stop and explain some things. But listen up. This is what he said yesterday on the Pat McAfee show. This is really interesting about the Arizona Cardinals, who, by the way, Kyler Murray put on the physically unable to perform list. He's not going to start the season. We don't know who's going to start the season, okay? But listen up. Here he is, Michael Lombardi.
Coin move here with cutting him. And Kyler Murray being on PUP. I don't think people truly understand what is happening in the desert. And let me just give you a background on Kyler.
Floor is yours.
Okay. Every contract in the National Football League, with the exception of Deshaun Watson, is guaranteed for injury. No one guarantees for skill and injury, because then you have to do what the Browns did with Watson and send the money in future year guaranteed to the league's escrow account. But if you only put one of those clauses on guarantees, it doesn't have to be funded. So in Kyler Murray's case, he's got $56 million coming, and he has a potential to earn $92 million that are only protected by the injury guarantee clause. Okay? So they placed him on PUP. My sense of it is he will not play for the rest of the year, because they can't risk putting him back on the field and having him get injured. And now they're on the hook for $56 million, and they're on the hook for $92 million guaranteed. Now,
4 days at the beginning of next season.
So you can see where the school of thought of that is. Now, that is some mumbo jumbo I don't really understand, but we kind of get the gist that they're holding him out to pay the less guarantee. I think there's some type of insurance in there where he's gonna get his guaranteed. No matter what, there's a certain level of that money that whether you get injured or not, it's going to be fully guaranteed. They're going to try to do that and circumvent the system and open that up. So that's Michael Lombardi on the Pat McAfee show. He goes on and explains in more detail. Didn't want that soundbite to run too long so the audience would get confused.
To determine whether that contract becomes skill and injury guaranteed. I think this gives them the opportunity to continue to examine. He's off the field. He can't get any more hurt than he already is. And it keeps them from having an injury guarantee.
Hey, just real quick, I don't know if I've heard that yet. Yeah. That seems like a pretty big little piece of information that you don't think Kyler's going to be playing all season. So getting rid of Colt is seemingly another wild move. What do you think they're doing? What is the plan is just to stink?
Well, I think they're going to stink whether Colt stayed or not. I mean, I think we make way too much out of, oh, my God, they cut Colt McCoy.
Yeah, they cut. So, essentially, they cut Colt McCoy, and they brought in, they made the trade for Josh Dobbs, who has some experience, and air quote, some experience in this offensive coordinator system, who was at Cleveland. Dobbs is somewhat of a journeyman quarterback, kind of bounced around here from time to time here. So you're kind of getting this. We mentioned this last week. Isaiah Simmons was traded to the Giants, probably one of their best defensive interior guys that they move around. Budda Baker wanted out, the safety, but I guess here's my thing. I think they would have got rid of Budda Baker, but they couldn't get the proper trade value. So they talked him into staying on the team now. And, of course, I'm out of Nashville. DeAndre Hopkins, that kind of made sense, though, because of his big cap hit. But he was moved to Tennessee. So you could see the moving parts. They still got Hollywood Brown there. They drafted an offensive lineman. You can tell that they are really stripping this thing down to the studs here. And that just makes me think about what Brian Flores told the NFL about Stephen Ross, telling him, I'll pay you to lose games. Telling Stephen Ross, I'll pay you. Stephen, he's alleging that, remember, the guy who, Brian Flores, the former coach of the Dolphins, he was suing the league and everything, and he was irritated with Stephen Ross trying to get him to lose every game his first year in 2019 for the 2020 draft because Joe Burrow was really skyrocketing up the scales here. And Ross, this is what Flores is saying, Ross wanted him to lose every game to potentially tank that year. And he was really annoyed when they started winning towards the end. Brian Flores, pretty good coach here. And eventually, remember, he got fired. Then the whole lawsuit came about. Flores had a good point there. So this is not out of the ordinary to do this kind of tanking, but it looks like they're being so blatant about it. And he says maybe they if that number, and I'll finish the soundbite here, but essentially, Michael Lombardi says the number will be down because they're going to take some of that money, and then some of that money guaranteed going back to Kyler Murray is going to not be such a big burden on the next team. He's coming back from ACL, right? That he would be a better trade piece. So this is what they're doing. They're blatantly tanking, okay? And they're also trying to get his stock up by getting his number down and being able to trade Kyler Murray. Now, what if Kyler Murray says, I'm injured, I'm injury free, I need to come out here and play? I could see him trying to possibly take some type of arbitration to the league if this gets out of hand, where he is healthy and he's saying, no, I want to play. So this thing's getting really dicey. And my sense is that this owner, this Michael Bidwell Pickles, he's pushing for that. He is pushing for that. And I think the league here I think the other owners around the league and executives, there's a possibility that they may push for to go to an NBA style lottery system. Now, I don't know if I'm for or against it. Part of me thinks, well, maybe they should because of what Arizona's doing. Then the other part of me thinks, well, the players are playing hard. They're trying to play well. Maybe you shouldn't do that because it keeps these down teams from staying down. What if the luck just doesn't happen and they're always picking 5th or 15th or something like that? So part of me thinks they shouldn't. Part of me thinks they should. I don't have a right answer, but I do think that there's going to be questions about this. Here's more from Michael Lombardi on the Pat McAfee show. Here's the rest of this. Because he can explain it more because he's a former executive.
Games once in his life, he's a great kid. He'll be a senator of the state from the state.
He's talking about Colt McCoy, who was recently released.
In Texas, he may be a head NFL coach. He's tremendous. I mean, he really is. However, that being said, he wasn't going to last. Joshua Dobbs was there before, so they kind of the coordinator Drew Petzing had him in Cleveland.
Right.
I mean, look, they're not going to be any good, and so they're going to go with one of those two kids and see what happens. But my point here is, if I were Monty Ossendorf and I were Jonathan Gannon, there's no chance I'm putting Murray on the field this year and risking that I'm going to fully guarantee a contract that I'm not sure I want to fully guarantee.
So hold on. So they're just moving on from Kyler then, in your eyes. What happens with Kyler?
Well, then that contract, say they move on to him, they would pay some of the acceleration. But what you'll read about in terms of when people start writing about this, Pat, they'll start writing as if, they can't get rid of him. He has $190 million guaranteed. No. This is guaranteed as you go because of that clause. You follow me? So it would cost them a lot. I think it cost them like $35 million to get rid of him on their cap. It wouldn't cost them all that if they did it the way I'm talking about doing it, which to me seems like the only way they can do it.
So you think they're moving on from Kyler? Where do you think somebody trades for Kyler then? That's what you think happened?
I think somebody might. I mean, look, at the end of the year, teams are desperate for a quarterback, and you could take on the contract. It wouldn't be as prohibitive for you. I think he would be ranked he would be in the top 15 paid quarterbacks once you remove what the Cardinals have paid him. So, look, they've got to make that decision. They're changing their culture. They've told us that. They've gotten rid of Hopkins. They got rid of Simmons, right? They're changing their culture. That's really important to their team. And both the new staff have no real relationship with anybody else moving forward. They didn't draft Murray. They didn't draft Simmons. They didn't sign Hopkins or trade for Hopkins.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, Michael Bidwell, this owner, he's trying to correct the mistake that he made with Cliff Kingsbury, paying Kyler Murray too soon, an undersized quarterback. It's like it hit him in the middle of the season. Like, I just made a big bleep up here, and now I'm going to have to overcorrect this. So the general manager moves on. He gets this other general manager here. I think he was assistant at Tennessee or whatever. Brings in this awful head coach, Jonathan Gannon, and he tells this general manager, my opinion in private, listen, be as aggressive as you can and trade down as much as we possibly can, so we can build this thing for the future. I'm bringing in this coach I know is no good. I know there's going to be a better quarterback, a more suitable quarterback in next year's draft. We got the right coach here for it. That's going to keep us bad, and we're going to get this quarterback, and we're going to move off this other quarterback. Try to find a way to circumvent this thing. Since he's coming off an injury, that'll give us an excuse not to play him. And like Lombardi explained, let's circumvent this major contract so the hit is not as much, and we can get out of this contract and trade him to elsewhere. So the hit is not as much on the new team that takes him on. He just said it'd be in the top 15 or something like that. So it's a big con job, Pickles. It's looking for loopholes, and I'm surprised that other owners around the league and executives may make a fuss at it. But hey, Arizona's been like this for most of Arizona's existence. It's usually where players go out to die. I thought Cliff Kingsbury. The hiring of him was kind of a gimmicky kind of hire. Nobody watches them. They still kind of have, and some of their games like Green Bay and stuff, I mentioned this before, they're like the LA teams. They got more of the opposing fans in their stands than they do their home fans, you know? So it really, I think they did away with that nonprofit thing a while back, Pickles, actually. I think that they have to pay taxes on it, lose their nonprofit. So I think they have to pay tax. I think they did away with that about 10 years ago. Red zone, wherever every zone game. Yeah, they will. Now, for us fantasy players, now that we know that they're a team, you take the running backs against them at home, you take the receivers against them on the road, you take the quarterbacks against them on the road, and we see how it plays out. I think this is there. Now, of course, the guys on the team, they're all playing for their jobs. But, man, they're not going to be well coached. They're going to have a rookie. This guy is a fifth-round pick. It's between Josh Dobbs, a guy they signed a week ago, that has, air quotes, some familiarity with this offensive coordinator. And it's it's starting jobs between a guy named Clayton Tune, Tune, fifth-round pick out of University of Houston, Pickles, and he's a rookie. No, let's see. So, you know, it's one of those things. The league office and management canceled to file the returns of taxable entitlements. NFL ends tax exempts back in April of 2015. April 28, 2015, Pickles. April 28, 2000, the NFL headquarters, the Washington Post, will need to pay taxes on income, but they won't have the shared details about executive pay. But we already know that the whatchamacallit's making like $50 million, Roger Goodell. So it's up there. Lottery for the top picks. So that would be something interesting. That should be food for thought. Okay. I think it's crazy, but you know, I don't know. My guess is nothing will come up about it. You know, nothing will come up about it. But then again, every time I write off something for the NFL, something else happens. You know, maybe this guy is if he's ever on tape saying that he wants to tank, he could be made to sell the team, this Mr. Bidwell. They couldn't find out about Ross because nothing ever came out about the Miami. Now, maybe it does in arbitration, but as of right now, Stephen Ross, the Miami Dolphins owner, nothing has came out as far as hardcore proof that he told Flores to lose games. But if you ever get caught on tape, hey, you can, you know, there's a possibility you could be made to sell the team like the guy did from the Washington Commanders. Okay. Watched Hard Knocks. I think we're getting towards the end. There may be one more episode. I know one player was released from Hard Knocks. You know, Rodgers he did get a little bit frustrated there in practice. He's still throwing those balls at the line of scrimmage. He's still wary of that offensive line. But when it come game time, he played really well. Had some words here. He was mic'd up with this guy, Jihad Ward. A late hit after a rough practice. He hit Wilson for a touchdown here. So the D looks really good from the Jet team. I'll say this. I've been back and forth on this Jets team, you know, between kind of watching Hard Knocks. Watching the Hard Knocks, you can only see so much between the lines with Hard Knocks, you know. But I'll say this. This team, they had a young, hungry defense last year. And Rodgers, he is pressing the right buttons with this team. You can tell it in the meetings. You could tell the way the other players respond to him. You could see the young coaching staff on the defense. They're conveying Rodgers' energy to those players. For instance, this guy, Will McDonald, is having a great camp. He was the guy that I thought, well, maybe they should have went offensive line at 15, it's a great camp. They maybe should have, went for, but Will McDonald, and there's another guy named Carl Larson that's on the Jets here. There's another guy named Carl Larson that's on the Jets. He was a free agent from the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. He was a free agent from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's healthy again. This defense is going to be really good. And I know Sauce Gardner, I was seeing him getting burned in practice here. I was seeing him, but I noticed when he was in the game, he was playing some lockdown corner in that one game against the Giants here. So this team is really hungry. I'm curious of what they're going to do. I really am, because, like I said, yesterday's program, Dwayne Brown, not even on the injury report anymore. That's the left tackle everybody's been holding out on to make sure this guy, if he can play, Rodgers is going to be fine. Then you got Mekhi Becton, now also not on the injury report. Now, today is the Wednesday before the next week's real reports start to come out, because the following Monday is the actual game on September 11th. But right now, looking at this team, even without Rodgers' frustration in practice from the way they played in the game, which is really good, plus the way their defense is flying around in practice and in the game, my thing is this team, I think they will beat Buffalo come Monday, September 11th, because Von Miller is out from physically unable. He's on the PUP. Buffalo gave him a lot of money. They took a big chance on him last year, and then he got injured last year, and he still ain't fully come back. He's 34 years old, getting a lot of money. I don't blame him. If you're going to write me, and it was some $50-60 million contract, plus 33, this is contract number 4 or something, 3 or 4 for Von Miller, who already made a big contract with Denver. He's already got his ring with Denver. I want to say one like defensive. I think he won Super Bowl MVP that year, the year that they went with Peyton. And he also won another ring with the Rams. Forgot about that. And so Buffalo, that's taken a lot of their cap up. You got the Stephon Diggs situation there. And I'm thinking the Jets probably beat them. And that's going to set the tone for the whole season. Now, next week, folks, I'm going to be into this NFL and give you every prediction for every single team. You will have my Super Bowl predictions on Thursday, 1 week from today, not tomorrow, 1 week from today. The show will start an hour early, and I will give you guys a heads up on this. But Thursday, opening night, I'm going to start the program at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. We'll knock out that hour before the Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs play. Okay? So, anyways, that's my thoughts there. Switching here. See, Pickles, the NFL has to open up their books because they do a profit splitting. The players, that's how the salary caps. The players get a percentage of the profits, and the owners get a percentage of the profits. And then the percentage, I think it's like 45% or whatever. So you just do the math that way. So that's how the salary cap is set up. They do the profits that way. Then that's how the cap sets up. That's why the cap went down. That's why it went down on the COVID year. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I do all my homework, folks. Okay, so the East is going to be, Pickle says it's Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, Bills. That could very well be it. because the Dolphins do have a good left tackle, but they're still a little shaky on the inside, and their cornerback, Jalen Ramsey, is out until December. That was their big offseason acquisition. They failed to get a very solid running back in Dalvin Cook, and they did not get a chance to get Jonathan Taylor in a trade, which was being talked about. So that, plus you got to look at Tua's history and everything like that. If they would have simply got one of those top quality running backs, I would be reluctant not to go. And say if Ramsey's not injured, the Dolphins, and say if Ramsey's not injured, and they get Dalvin Cook or Jonathan Taylor, if Ramsey's not injured and they get Jonathan Taylor or Dalvin Cook, I could put the Dolphins in first place. But that didn't happen. You look at Tua's if Tua gets a concussion, there's so much issues with Tua there that there's so much pressure on the organization to leave him out for 4 or 5 months or 4 or 5 games. Well, then you got was it Mike White as the backup against the well-coached Patriots, the Bills defense, so the Jets could very well win that. That could be my prediction. That could very well be my prediction. It's just getting those numbers down. There could be 3 teams out of the East to go to the playoffs. It happened in the NFC West one year, and I predicted it for the playoffs a couple years ago. So Mostert will have to be healthy, and Mostert, Pickle says, gets hurt every year. Myles Gaskin got released. Pickle says, Mike White looked good for about a half for the Jets, and everybody wants him to be the starter now. So go figure. Okay, switching to the Heisman race. Folks, God, I'm going right through this show. Let me get a sip of water here. We got 33 minutes here, and I got a lot of football talk. Okay. So let's go through these numbers. This is according to FanDuel, folks. Heisman odds. I love talking to Heisman. Now, I'm going to talk. So essentially, I'll give you the 4 people I think is going to get invited to New York in December, right? So, by the way, Joe Burrow back at practice today. So that makes me think about Cincinnati again. On the Cincinnati. Little side note, by the way. Remember, he had that calf injury, Pickles, a few weeks ago. Now, this is according to FanDuel. Caleb Williams is the favorite again to repeat and win the Heisman again. What was that guy's name that won there? Archie Griffin, 74-75. That was a long time ago. I do not think that Archie Griffin, this will be another Archie Griffin moment. Remember, folks, when Tebow was a finalist 3 times. I'll look this up. I thought it was only 2 times. University of Florida, Tim Tebow was finalist 3 times. When they went to their last SEC championship game against Alabama, which they got their butts kicked, that was in that documentary, I thought that he was going to win his second one that year. And he finished like 4th. He ended up finishing 4th that year, and somebody else won. It may have been Mark Ingram from Alabama. I can't remember. That means no, never mind. Caleb Williams will not win the Heisman this year. For one thing, I think he's going to try to stay healthy because he's projected to be the number 1 player overall. Just between me and you folks, that's my opinion. I don't think USC's Caleb Williams, I don't think he's going to press hard because deep down he knows they don't have a national championship team. Lincoln Riley's teams never quite have the defense that it is to win a national championship, okay? They do not have the defense to win a national championship. I don't see it. I don't see the schedule being there. I think Williams is still going to be a top draft pick, probably 1, 2, or 3, something like that. So I do think he'll get the call, folks. I think he'll make it to New York. But like Tebow, he's not going to finish this time. Okay, a lot of people are talking about this guy, Jordan Travis here, 23-year-old player, Florida State University, had some really good games last year. He can sling it. He could sling it. But Jordan Travis from Florida State, Pro Football Focus says that they could possibly have the best receiving core in the country. I'm not that in love with Mike Norvell. I think he's probably going to be a finalist, though. I think this guy's going to be a finalist. So I'm not putting him in there, but he does make it. He does make it to he does make it to New York. Okay. Now, Sam Hartman had a great game. Sam Hartman's the guy. He's a quarterback. Where is he at? His numbers are pretty plus 1,600. Now, he's the guy I mentioned before at Wake Forest. He beat Jordan Travis. He was at Wake Forest. He beat Jordan Travis, the Florida State quarterback. They won the game. He transfers to Notre Dame, lights up Navy next week. This coach here at Notre Dame, they have recruited really well. Got off to a rough start. Remember, they lost to Marshall last year, but they came back strong and finished strong. And this kid's very talented. I'm surprised he didn't take a shot at the NFL this past year. But either way, he's going to get called. He's going to light it up. By the way, they play Ohio State at Notre Dame. Don't be surprised if they don't beat Ohio State. Ohio State hard in the opening week last year. They might beat Ohio State this year. Matter of fact, I think they probably will because it's at Notre Dame, folks. So that's the third guy. Okay, Pickles. Here's the fourth guy. Okay, I don't think. I got this Phil Steele magazine, $20, but it was worth it. Took forever to find it. These magazines getting harder and harder to find, Pickles, I tell you, because so many people go onto the internet. But this guy's magazine's got everything right in front of you. I think the teams that are possibly going to go undefeated and get into the playoffs, I don't think they're going to have that dominating player that is going to win the Heisman. I'm going to put it this way. So I think there's going to be a system, the proper coach, the proper system, the proper resume, and that it's going to work out that way where a team that comes up just short is that player. For example, Robert Griffin III, University of Baylor, tore it up at Baylor, played great. Baylor didn't get to the playoff that year, Pickles. They didn't get to the national championship or anything like that. But Griffin won the Heisman. Okay. So I'm thinking, if you think about a team like University of Tennessee, for example, Hendon Hooker last year, #1 offense in the country. Hendon Hooker, big moments against Alabama, big moments against LSU, big moments against Florida, beat Alabama. Him, Jalen Hyatt, the guy gets injured, tears his ACL, I think, in the South Carolina game. They lose that game. Now everything I'm reading, this Joe Milton, Tennessee, favorable schedule, tough road game at Alabama, even though I think they'll probably lose that game. Got Georgia at home this year, a bigger player in Joe Milton, stronger arm in Joe Milton. Tennessee, Joe Milton wins the Heisman. I think Joe Milton, first Tennessee player in my lifetime, Pickles, I think he's gonna win the Heisman. I think Tennessee, on the other hand, we'll talk about their schedule in depth here in a little bit, but I think Joe Milton, he's going to be the fourth player called to New York, and he's going to win it. I'm looking at his arm strength. I'm looking at his speed. I'm looking at this system. You heard what Richard said. They opened up, by the way. Here in Nashville, Pickles. I didn't know that. They're going to play Virginia at Nissan Stadium. Totally sold out. It's going to be about 82 at kickoff and sunny. the over and under for that game's 56. And I'm thinking they'll put at least 40 on Virginia. They'll put at least 40. They put 31 on Clemson's defense in the bowl game. Now give him a full off season. This guy's going to win the Heisman. Joe Milton Pickles will win the Heisman in New York come December, folks. So, let's talk about the SEC. Okay. Transition. Alabama. That's the first. I'm looking at them. I've told you all. By the way, Phil Steele thinks this has not been announced yet. Nick Saban is waiting to the last minute, but he's saying this guy named Tyler Butcher Jr. will be listed as the starting quarterback. Not what's this other guy's name? I'll see if I can get his name here. Not Jalen Monroe. He's saying it's going to be Tyler Butcher Jr. here. Now, Alabama, 5 defensive, 5 offensive. I've talked about Alabama. Number 1 class last year. Number 2 class the year before last. Remember when he got mad about the Texas A&M? Well, you know what they had the year before that? Number 1 class. Phil Steele. Phil Steele is taking over. Let's say Phil Steele. Oh, God, I can't remember the guy's name now. The defensive coordinator, I think his name may be Phil Steele, too. Either way, their coordinator here, their coordinator is coming back. They got rid of their old coordinator. Try to get his name here. I thought I had it wrote down, but I didn't. But either way, my thing is their defense will be better next year. It's not going to be giving up no 52 to Alabama. Trying to say Kevin Steele, excuse me. Had the last name right. Kevin Steele will be back here. So much better defensive coordinator here. You know, I want to say he worked out with them before. Yeah, he was a coordinator at Miami. So they're going to have a revamped offensive line. That defense is going to look good. Top-notch recruiting. You look at their schedule here. They got Tennessee at home. Now, they do play at A&M. Remember, A&M pushed them pretty hard. And Bobby Petrino's coaching A&M. But they've got Texas at home week 2. Cannot wait to see that game. Coming on second Saturday, not Saturday, but next Saturday, 6 p.m. Central. Nice primetime game going against Quinn Ewers and that Texas team. Different story, though, at Alabama. They'll beat them decisively there. So I'm not giving you my Final Four, but I will say this. I do have Alabama in there. Looking at their schedule, they got LSU after a bye week at home. Tennessee's at home. Arkansas's at home. They do have to play at Auburn. That could be a sneaky game for them towards the end of the season because Hugh Freeze is there. And they do have to play, again, they do have to play at A&M. Those are my 2 games of concern. Even if they do slip up and lose one of those games, I still think that they'll probably find a way to slide in there. Because looking at everything, I don't see anybody. I mean, nobody in the SEC West going undefeated. And next here, here's LSU. Now, LSU, they got to play at Florida State. It's technically in Orlando this year. LSU's a very close team to getting in. I think they'll probably come up just a little bit short because I think Alabama will beat them head up. They have to play Florida after Alabama. They had to play Texas A&M to end the season. Now, with 8 offensive and 7 defensive coming back, Brian Kelly saw how good a coach he was. This team did have 4 losses last year. See, this is what I don't like about the way college football is. In the SEC, they if you lose, it goes by your division. It should go by overall record. They had no business, LSU, in the SEC championship game last year. They had 4 losses. Remember, they lost to LSU. They lost to Tennessee last year. I can't remember who they lost. Of course, Georgia beat the crap out of them in the SEC championship game in the second half. And then Texas A&M beat them 38-23 at A&M. Now, they got A&M home, and so they're probably, my guess is they'll probably lose 2 games. I know they'll lose to Alabama, and they'll probably lose to at Mississippi or at Missouri or Auburn. It'll be because those teams are all playing together, see. All those are playing together. There's always a, oh, crap, I can't believe we lost to that team kind of moment. So that I thought LSU was going to be better than that. They're going to be really good. Brian Kelly's going to have them well coached. But this year, because we only got 4 teams, I think they're probably a 2-loss team, and they are better. You know, just giving you a couple of teams of interest in the SEC. Now, Jimbo Fisher making a lot of money. You know, like guy Remo said in the movie Casino, Pickles, when he's talking about the De Niro character, Sam Rothstein, I think is his name, or it may have been Stan. I can't remember. Either way, $75 million contract. He got a lot of pressure on him, Jimbo Fisher. That's why I want to talk about A&M. But they went out and got Bobby Petrino last year. And they're supposed to have this guy, Comer, wingman or whatever, starting at quarterback here. Remember, they got the number 1 class year before last. They've recruited well for years at A&M. It's just keeping everybody focused. Bringing in Petrino to work with that offense. The defense has always been there, okay? Remember, this team, very good players here, had the talent, played well against Alabama. 7 losses last year. Really bad loss, though, early on against Appalachian State. Remember that last year? But they've got 20 out of 22 starters back, and this team will be totally revitalized this year. I do believe in this national championship coach. They do play at Miami this year. Remember, Miami played there last year, and they beat Miami. They got to play at Tennessee after they play Alabama. So there's a potentially 2 losses there. And maybe a loss at LSU towards the very end. But, hey, you know, you go from 5-7 to 10-2 or 11-2, something like that. I could see Jimbo Fisher keeping his job. I really can. I do believe that they're going to make that kind of turnaround. Especially Pickles, especially if Bobby Petrino is calling the plays here, you know. And here's another one here, Lane Kiffin. Now, Ole Miss, just a few thoughts on them. 9 offensive, 7 defensive coming back. This team was 8-5 last year. They're always good for an upset somewhere, you know. And they got to play at Alabama and at Auburn. They got LSU at home, and they got to play at Georgia. I don't think that this team will get that much better, but I do put this team. They've had, some of their players have came out and played well in the NFL. We've seen that particularly at wide receiver and whatnot. But I will say this. They're an interesting team to play sleeper against. But they have one of the toughest schedules in the country. It's number 12 ranked at Georgia this year, at Auburn this year, that's at Alabama. So Kiffin, who was almost bought away and brought to Auburn, I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't call for his head this year. That's just me. And, Auburn Auburn's an interesting team. You know, they were 5-7 last year, but here is your potential. What do you call it here? Dream buster, if you want to use that term. Sleeper, if you want to use that term. Hugh Freeze coming in first year, low expectations, with 17 out of 22 starters coming back. Be careful. This team could upset Alabama at the very end and knock them out of their dreams of playing for an SEC championship game. I'll say that about Auburn. Recruiting has been anywhere from 10 to 15. It's been mediocre for Hugh Freeze type of team, but I know Hugh Freeze can coach. You know, he coached well at Ole Miss. Why do you think Auburn hired him? Because he was killing it at Liberty, even when people were watching him, you know? So they're a team that's going to be considered to be a sleeper, upset artist here. They got Georgia at home on September 30th. They got to play at LSU after their bye week on the 14th. They could bust their hopes up at LSU. Be careful of a team like a Auburn. They're that team that you looked at their record last year, you look at their recruiting classes, and you've got Alabama or Georgia coming up, and you overlook them, and you got the big L on you. So keep an eye out for Georgia next year, Pickles. Black horse, dark horse. They are the dark horse. And listen, Georgia, a lot of people's high on Georgia. They should be. Georgia's got 13 starters coming back out of 22. But like I was telling Richard yesterday, Georgia is a team. They're technically, just to be technically, according to Phil Steele, their schedule is ranked 56th in the country. Okay. Georgia is a team. I do like this. Their quarterback, Carson Beck, is officially going to be the quarterback here. Man, I like this tight end they got, Brock Bowers. This guy's going to be a top 10 pick, man. I mean, he's going to be up there with Jeremy Shockey, Greg Olson, Pickles, maybe even a Travis Kelce. But Georgia, their recruiting has not been as good as Alabama's. It has not been as good as of late. Texas A&M out-recruited them the year before that. Now, I understand they went undefeated last year. They have a new quarterback here. They had a lot of players drafted last year in the draft. They've lost 25 in the draft alone over those two championship teams there, folks. What could save them is this very easy schedule. But yeah, I don't think Florida's going to be that good this year. Matter of fact, I think Florida will probably move off this head coach after 2 years. That's my opinion. But Georgia, I mentioned this before. UT Martin opened up the UT Martin Saturday. Then the next Saturday, Pickles, Ball State, then South Carolina, in Georgia, then UAB. That is embarrassing. And then they finally play at Auburn on the 30th. Now, Auburn could get them. They could be overconfident for Auburn. Then Kentucky at Vanderbilt, bye week. Then they play Florida, the Jacksonville game they play every year. And then Missouri, Mississippi, which is Ole Miss. I just mentioned Ole Miss, at Tennessee. Now, Tennessee could upset them. And Tennessee could have 2 losses. Georgia still get into the SEC championship game. But even if so, I think Alabama will knock them off in that SEC championship game. So I do not think Georgia's going to make it this year to the play. That's just my opinion. I do not think they're going to make it this year. I think the lack of you saw about that accident. We talked about that, dealing with Jalen Carter with Georgia. I think that there is a level of loose program. I'm making up words here. that I do think that Kirby Smart, contrary to what he says, I think he runs a loose program. I think he's an excellent recruiter. He gets the best out of them on game day, but I think that they get distracted. They're almost like they're starting to look like that Florida team with Tim Tebow and Aaron Hernandez. You got some real straight guys on there. Then you got some crazies. You got some wild and crazy cats on there. That accident that Jalen Carter was involved in, people got killed. There's lawsuits being filed. The racing thing. Atlanta Journal-Constitution's been writing all kinds of stuff about Georgia. I think they got a cakewalk early, but I think they're going to feel themselves. And even if I think they'll lose between Mississippi and Tennessee. I think Tennessee will probably beat them this year on the 18th of November. I just don't think they're going to be that good this year. That's my opinion. And speaking of the Devils here, Tennessee's got 7 players back on defense, and they've got 5 on offense. Now, like I said, I've read more about this guy, this Joe Milton, who I think is going to win the Heisman. I've read more about him than any other quarterback in college football. I was already aware of Drake May. I was already aware of Caleb Williams, Michael Penix up in Washington, McCarthy up in Michigan. I was already aware of those guys. But this offseason, Milton, I'm seeing films of him throwing the ball 60 yards without a fly, without even barely putting forth any effort. Looks like a flick of the wrist. Peyton Manning, the Manning camp. I was reading that he was real impressive at that camp as well. You looked at the way he played, 31 points Tennessee scored against Clemson in that bowl game. You look how he played in the second game as a starter last year against Vanderbilt in a total blowout there. He's a bigger, stronger player than Hendon Hooker, okay? And this team, they opened up Saturday against Virginia here in Nashville, played my alma mater, Austin Peay, which is a crappy team in week 2. But then they play at Florida. Like I said, Florida's not going to be that good this year. So I think they've knocked out Florida now, but Florida could beat them because Florida's had their number for a long time. But they got South Carolina in Knoxville. They got A&M off of a bye week. Then they go to Alabama. They're going to lose that game. They'll lose to Alabama. And I think because he runs a spread system, I think they'll slip up either at Kentucky because it's after the Alabama game, or at Missouri because it's from the Georgia game, or flat out lose to Georgia. They'll lose one of them games. And then it'll be their second loss, and that'll keep them from getting in the SEC championship game. But I do think that this guy's going to win the Heisman. I think he's going to kill it, man. So and look, this Kentucky team, they got 10 starters coming back on offense. So they're going to be interesting. Like I said, Billy Napier, 7 losses, got blown out by Oregon State last year, lost to Vanderbilt last year, haven't recruited well this year. I think they're going to lose tomorrow against Utah. And they got to play at LSU. Like I said, at Utah. But they do got Tennessee at home, at Kentucky. Remember, Kentucky beat them last year, okay, in Gainesville. So, and here's another one here. Here's a sleeper here. Keep an eye out for Missouri. Missouri's got 15 starters coming back. Missouri pushed Georgia to the wire last year. Matter of fact, that was the closest game they had in the conference, Georgia, to Missouri. Head coach there, Eli Dirkowitz here. And, of course, Vanderbilt. So that's the SEC. I mean, I think Alabama wins it. Alabama gets into the they'll probably end up playing Georgia because Georgia's, getting there because of the easy schedule they got. But Alabama will get into the playoff, and they'll be one of my playoff teams here. Even if they lose a game, I think they'll figure it out. That they'll find a way. Remember, they lost 2 games. They were both decided on the last play last year. Kevin Steele defense, that's going to be good. So tomorrow, we'll talk about Michigan, which I'm pretty sure is going to get into. Definitely talk about Ohio State. Now, USC, go over USC. Penn State. Some people are saying Penn State could get in. Okay. I'll talk Clemson. I'm really leaning towards that 3rd team there, Clemson, and I'm still studying that 4th team. So this year, there could be somebody we haven't heard of make it like last year, like TCU, folks. So, love college football. Can't wait. Pickle says, yeah, Vandy will score some points. Hey, they've gotten better. It's the 3rd year for, I think the guy's name is Clark Lee. And I was reading something that Vanderbilt's got a 4-star player coming there. And my friend Michael, this guy goes to every Vanderbilt game. Man, I'm like, dude, you're one loyal dude. How could you see them get their teeth kicked in? He's saying that this guy's not quite the recruiter of James Franklin. I said, well, that's probably a good thing, and then you'll probably keep him for a few more years. Because if he's recruiting like James Franklin, some big dog's going to offer him more money at a bigger university and hire him away. So, yeah, Vanderbilt will be interesting. So those are the teams of interest in the SEC. Folks, tomorrow, again, I'll be back here same time, same place. If you like the show, please share the show. Again, we'll go over Final Four picks, and I will talk about some more teams that are bubble teams. Tennessee is a bubble team to get in. I think they're going to miss. Georgia's a bubble team. I think they'll probably come up short. USC's a bubble team. They were a bubble team last year. I think they're going. Oregon's a bubble team, but they got some rough road games. I'm looking at Oregon's schedule too, so that's what's going to make this thing interesting. Because we don't know. We don't know. You know, I talked to Al Borges, didn't know. Rich Ferris, big college football guy, he didn't know. So, like I said, what I do know, I do think that Milton from Tennessee is going to win that Heisman, and I do think Alabama will be in the playoff, and I think Michigan will be there with J.J. McCartney. I'm leaning towards Clemson, and I still ain't found that other one. That's what tomorrow's research is going to be, reading more of this stuff. So have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, here on Sports.